Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient.
Again, we are so grateful to those who submitted to Groundwaters so that we can share their work. If you're interested in sharing, once more, you may submit to couragechecklist@gmail.com. And again, once more, I'm very excited to thank the Applegate Regional Theater and their fine voice actors who helped us with the recordings for this episode. Have a great week, and thanks for listening.
Remembering Quincy by Dick Jordan. I met Quincy in July of 1984 at the McKenzie Pass campground on Highway 242, which connects the Willamette Valley west of the Oregon Cascades and the town of Sisters east of that mountain range. We would spend the next 5 days tramping through the wilderness at the foot of the volcanic peaks known as the Three Sisters.
Quincy and I were about the same height at the shoulder, but due to his much longer neck, his head towered over mine. Thanks to hour upon hour slaving away at a desk job, I was no longer as slim as I had been in my youth. But despite the fact that Quincy spent nearly all his days in the great outdoors, he outweighed me by 100 pounds or more.
We bathed at the end of each day's hike, me by dousing myself with a bucket of cold water scooped out of a snow melt-fed stream, he by rolling around in the dirt. I changed my clothes a few times during the trip. He always wore the same shaggy coat. By the end of our journey through the mountains, it was debatable who was the scruffiest, but we both smelled quite fragrant.
Fast forward to 2010, when I entered these mountains with a different and far less mangy-looking companion, my wife. After a few leisurely days hanging out at the Metolius River Resort near Sisters, we turned in the key to our cabin and begun a day's journey westward over the mountains to the home of friends living just south of Eugene.
Before starting out, we stopped to top off our gas tank. The Chevron station and the parking lot it shared with McDonald's was jammed with cars and people being refueled. McDonald's customers lined up nearly out the door waiting to fill up on a late breakfast of Egg McMuffins or an early lunch of Big Macs.
But as we left town heading to the McKenzie Pass, there were few vehicles ahead or behind us. The Three Sisters quickly passed out of view as the highway's 2 lanes narrowed to Model A Ford width and corkscrewed up the mountains.
At the first scenic viewpoint along the road, we met up with a few cars and 2 Harley-Davidson motorcycles. The owner of the Harley, with a burnt orange paint job, discussed the finer points of motorcycling with a fellow biker dude and his lady, both outfitted in leather vests and chaps.
From that viewpoint, we could see the main peaks that we had spotted earlier in the week: Washington, Jefferson, and the Three-Fingered Jack, rising up over the miles-long expanse of basaltic boulders running north to south in this area.
A short while later, we reached the pass and the D. Wright Observatory, a castle-like turret sitting atop a huge jumbled pile of black lava rocks. We climbed to the top to take in the sweeping view south to the North and Middle Sister and north toward the other major Cascade peaks, including the haze-enshrouded summit of Mount Hood east of Portland.
A golden-mantled ground squirrel with the cheeks on both sides of his face bulging out like helium balloons was eating out of the hand of a backpacker reclining against rocks along the pathway fronting the parking area below the observatory. When I learned that he and his hiking companion had just come off the portion of the trail that traverses the Three Sisters Wilderness, I recalled my journey through the same area with Quincy over a quarter century before.
That summer of 1984, Quincy, his pals, me, and the other members of our contingent met up at the end of a Sunday afternoon and enjoyed a campfire dinner together. Then I climbed into my sleeping bag, zipped up the door to my tent, and fell fast asleep.
Monday morning, we ate a quick breakfast, packed up our gear, and set off up the trail through the ancient lava flow on the other side of the highway.
For the first 2 days, we hiked 4 to 5 miles a day, up and over ridges, crossing the flanks of the still snow-covered mountains looming above us. We whetted our appetites each evening before dinner with Mai Tai cocktails made from clumps of soft summer snow. We stuffed our faces with all manner of great food. The Milky Way wheeled above us in the sky as we slept the night away.
The third day, we stayed put, moseying about, taking photos, or sitting around the campsite reading. The next day, we broke camp and headed east toward the Three Sisters.
On the fifth and final day, we turned north and walked 7 miles back to where we had started out on Monday morning.
Until encountering weekend backpackers coming in as we neared the end of the trail and our waiting cars, we had seen only 2 other people, horseback riders, who, like us, were camping in the wilderness.
Quincy and I stuck close together throughout each day that we hiked, but on our only day off, he hung out with the pals with whom he had arrived on the previous Sunday.
They were a sociable, closely bonded band of buddies. If one of them would make a pit stop along the trail, he would run like hell to catch up with the friends who had walked on ahead of him. And they always had dinner together, away from the rest of us hikers, eschewing our protein-laden meals for a totally vegetarian repast.
I hadn't thought about Quincy in many years. He probably wouldn't have come to mind in the summer of 2010 either if we had not decided to vacation in Central Oregon.
I don't know where Quincy and his friends are today, but it's not likely that they are trekking through the Oregon Cascades any longer. Their lifespan is only about 15 to 20 years, so odds are that they are now residing high above the Three Sisters, looking down from Llama Heaven upon the wilderness where they spent so many happy times in summers long since past.
Growing Up Olivia by Olivia Taylor Young. My first day in kindergarten to my last day in college, and through single life, marriage, motherhood, and an active career until I was old enough to collect Social Security, I was the one and only Olivia I ever met. That's why 2 recent online articles really brought me up short. The first inexorably fated children with unusual names to lifetimes of lasting trauma. Yet, I know from firsthand knowledge that the premise is absurd. Yes, life has handed me a few black eyes across 8 decades, but having an atypical name was never a root cause. On a lighter note, reporting that Olivia is now this nation's #1 name for baby girls, the second article had me vacillating between amazement and amusement. I'm aware my name has morphed from outlier to outrightly popular in recent decades, but its long-time status as an oddball still makes it difficult to get my head around the idea of an America overrun with little Olivias. Growing up, I always knew people who shared the name I'd been dubbed with really did exist somewhere. But that somewhere always seemed to be elsewhere, either in time or place. Mark Twain's wife was Olivia Langdon, but the happy couple was from the 19th century. And yes, while Olivia de Havilland and, decades later, Olivia's Hussey and Newton-John gained fame on America's silver screen, those stars were born, respectively, in Great Britain, Argentina, and Australia. On the other hand, despite my having never met Olivia de Havilland in the flesh, our connection to one another was extremely personal and very real, at least on my part. since she was apparently the only other Olivia on the planet when I was born in 1937. I was sort of named for her. Sort of is the operative phrase, stemming from the fact that my parents' heritage included naming newborn children after the dearly departed. And while, to my knowledge, my impending birth was not a factor, both my maternal grandfather, Oscar, and paternal grandfather, Isaac, joined those dearly departed shortly before my natal day. This left my expectant young mother and father not only grieving both their dads, but rooting hard for a boy and toying with Americanized versions of their names like Owen and Ian. I've also been told that upon hearing the words, "It's a girl," my mother's first response was, "Oh my God, what am I going to name her?" It was the kindly family doctor, the same one who delivered all the siblings in our household, that comforted this frantic patient with the suggestion, "How about Olivia? You know, like the actress Olivia de Havilland." And so it came to pass I was named Olivia Irene. And within the realms of family folklore, not only did I inherit my grandpa's initials, I was also named for a movie star. An unusual handle, I should add, that came complete with unfulfilled great expectations. I should also add that, in one of life's many ironies, when I finally did meet another Olivia, she really had been named for a movie star, with no sort-ofs attached. One afternoon, when I was in my early 60s, I was having coffee with a neighbor when her teenage daughter came home from school with a classmate in tow. As she introduced her friend Olivia to her mother and me, I sprang to my feet and asked if I could give the girl a hug. After all, she was the first person I'd ever met who actually shared my name. But no one ever promised a long-sought sisterhood of Olivias wouldn't come with a built-in generation gap. Olivia de Havilland appeared in 49 feature films, including my all-time favorite, Gone with the Wind, and won 2 Oscars for Best Actress and 2 Golden Globes. Yet, when my newfound namesake told me her parents had been big fans of Olivia Newton-John and had even named her for that star, I replied I'd been named for Olivia de Havilland. The teenager stared at me quite blankly and said, "Who?" Nevertheless, our conversation let me know our name in common was no longer an aberration. In fact, there were actually a few other Olivias among her schoolmates. How gratifying it was to realize she and Olivias who'd followed would be spared the name-based isolation and semi-traumas like the one I experienced on my first day of junior high, now referred to as middle school. Who'd ever made up individual student schedules back then thought Olivia was a misspelling of the masculine Oliver and sent me to the boys' gym class? I should make it clear, however, that while I'm happy current and future Olivias will be spared something similar, I don't believe any name's popularity will necessarily shield its bearer from adversity. Nor do I believe an unusual name inevitably means long-term damage. Yes, the gym class incident absolutely mortified me at the age of 11, but it quickly became a funny story I could share for the rest of my life. Perhaps Olivia Langdon's husband summed it up best. Quote, "Life is a tragedy up close and a comedy from a distance," end quote. Besides, one era's wildly popular name can be persona non grata in the next, and vice versa. And regarding uncommon names, there is a fad among today's teens to change their parent-given names at will, and many of the new, personally chosen designations are anything but conventional. At one time or another, most youngsters hate their given name and wonder how their parents could have had such god-awful taste. And while I readily admit to having thought those thoughts and having secretly envied the kids with trendy or tried and true names, I quickly came to realize my friends and classmates were just as apt to get teased whether or not their names boasted widespread recognition. I was likened to Popeye's girlfriend, Olive Oil, more times than I can count. My best friend Eleanor, sort of named for Mrs. Roosevelt, was dubbed Smelly Belly Ellie. And another friend, Carol, was heckled Carol the Barrel. But for the most part, it was all just a rite of passage and not cause for PTSD. So here I am in my dotage, and where once it seemed no one but me was dubbed Olivia, today I see and hear my name everywhere I go. Now, according to the latest statistics, every other baby carriage in America will soon be ferrying around another of my namesakes. And when someone calls Olivia, or any of its derivatives, female youngsters of all sizes will spring up from every schoolyard and playground within a 10-mile radius. A wise old sage once counseled, "All things come to those who wait." And while I wasn't exactly waiting, in fact, never even imagined this could happen, I'm happy that it's unlikely these Olivias will be looked at weirdly because of what they've been named. Nor, unless they want to, will they be sent to boys' gym classes. On the other hand, social change never comes without resistance. As I was writing this article, an email popped up on my screen that read, "Olivia!" exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Try this new product and you'll never use Viagra again.
The Lost Angles by Bruce Gates. I was searching in my woodshop for a specifically shaped wooden tool I had made. The tool was useful to pry or nudge heavy fabric, like canvas or leather, into tight places. I couldn't recollect exactly where I had retired it, so I started to clean up the detritus that had grown over one end of my workbench. It was a flotsam pile that grew month after month until it could no longer be ignored. I found the tool, but noticed lots of end cuts from 2x6s, 2x4s, 2x2s, and smaller laying about. They were all triangle-shaped, and I began to wonder what I had saved them for originally. There was a plethora of pieces in cedar, oak, maple, bamboo, and even some purple heart. And as I found more and more, I decided to get a large box to put them all in. I eventually ended up with a bushel of triangles in various sizes, colors, and character. I had this brief fantasy that I had uncovered, like an archaeologist's find, a nest of long-forgotten triangles from antiquity. Then, all of a sudden, I knew that I was in possession of an ideal beginning of a story. I rushed out to find a pencil and begin this journey of a poem.
The Lost Angles. I found a nest of triangles today in the woodshop. They were hiding in a dusty diaspora of shadow and light at the bottom of a well that no one remembered. Confined, they were multiplied with the spiders and their dead flies, like ladies in waiting, hoping for what's next. I wooed them with something so they could slough off the detritus around them and fabricate a new world order. Together, we made an amalgamation of circles and angles and a hodgepodge of angels. Emerged from the dusty scraps a carpentered flotsam and jetsam reunion that everyone said was so creative, but was really just something to do.
Rain Song by Bruce Gates. I can see rain, hear rain, feel it, but I cannot speak rain. She doesn't want to listen, runs away and hides. If I try to talk with her, that's probably because I gurgle the language. It bubbles up like trapped methane from a bog. She looks at me like I'm some kind of runnel in a tunnel, an illiterate frog. She was etched in water early on, steady, strong, wearing pieces away with her songs. Trunks fell away, and I wondered how it happened. Then she disappeared for long periods, and the drought set in. Dry times, tindery, flashpoints, sin, making you want to do a special dance, calling her back again. Sometimes she's a patter, streaming up and gushing, becomes a splatter all over the place, a flood emanating from her face. She flew on the wind once, got there before I did, saved my skin. I'm gonna try and speak rain again. It's such a hard grammar. I tend to stammer, mouthing platitudes, fizz floating up from below, and there she goes.
Dawn Lee by Lona Feldman. Back from getting the mail, my husband has handed me a small rectangular envelope, the type that contains an impersonal check for the rent. It is addressed to me. She has written me a letter. Childish print in block letters with a pencil on lined paper, keywords misspelled or unfinished. She says she has early onset Alzheimer's. She hopes my family is doing well. She is fine. I sit at the dining room table, staring at my white, normal wall, looking into my younger sister's future.
Snow Day by Denise Bluth. A white, crunchy, cold blanket covers the ground and trees. Cars move slowly through slush, sliding and gliding into each other. Schools are closed for the day. Many businesses' doors stay shut. Kids with bright red faces smile. Under their arms they carry sleds. They gently roll down mild hills, gather dirty ice into sad snowmen. Mothers grind their teeth tensely. Too many people still under feet. Bourbon hidden in cocoa is warm. They look forward to bedtime. The winter wonderland is false. Frostbite and dents rule all.
Again, we are so grateful to those who submitted to Groundwaters so that we can share their work. If you're interested in sharing, once more, you may submit to couragechecklist@gmail.com. And again, once more, I'm very excited to thank the Applegate Regional Theater and their fine voice actors who helped us with the recordings for this episode. Have a great week, and thanks for listening. Thank you so much for sharing your day with us. Please send feedback or your list to the voicemail link or to couragechecklist@gmail.com. Please follow the show and then follow us on Instagram at the Courage Checklist. Have a wonderful day.